The show opens up with a beautiful young woman, our main character, Bai Jing, waking up early in the morning. Right then, her boss Jin Xiang calls her and tells her to come pick him up within 15 minutes. He also demands that she bring his favorite Chinese dish from a nearby restaurant. Hearing this, Bai hurries to her boss's place along with his breakfast. Here, it's revealed that Bai was recently dumped by her boyfriend for being too busy with her boss to dedicate enough time to their relationship. In the present, despite her best efforts to be quick, Bai arrives late and her boss, Jin Xian, the CEO of New Era Company, threatens to cut her pay. He even refuses to eat the breakfast she brought and sends her to bring another. Following orders, Bai runs to get another dish. Unfortunately, on her way, she slips and breaks her ankle and is hospitalized. Later, when she opens her eyes in the hospital, she finds Jin sitting in front of her. Strangely, he hands over her laptop and orders her to complete the day's tasks. Jin also makes it clear that he doesn't have any interest in visiting or caring for her, and he only came because of urgent work matters. Bai silently takes the laptop and gets to work. To her surprise, when she checks her inbox, she finds an anonymous email from a company's HR offering her a secretary job with a handsome salary. Bai is really impressed with the perks of being a secretary at this company and decides to apply for the job. Unfortunately, by the time she prepares the documents required, she notices that there's only 1 minute left before the submission deadline. Frustrated, she believes she's lost the perfect opportunity to get away from her asshole of a boss, Jin. Bai then sits upright in her bed and begins praying for another opportunity. Surprisingly, her prayers are answered, and as soon as the clock strikes midnight, it rewinds to the previous day, May 20th. The following morning, Bai again wakes up to her boss's call and is surprised to find herself in her own bed. She assumes that breaking her ankle was all just a dream and cheerfully gets ready for work, planning to resign and apply to the new company. This time, Bai does everything seamlessly. She arrives on time to pick up Jin and even brings him a nice fresh breakfast. She also completes all her tasks on time and prepares a resignation letter to hand over to Jin. Unfortunately, when she approaches Jin at his office and presents her resignation letter, he refuses to accept it, saying that he alone decides who comes and goes. Jin then tears up the resignation letter and tells Bai that she can only leave the company when she is old enough to retire. When Jin prepares to leave, our girl follows him and tries to persuade him, but to no avail. She even follows him to an elevator, only to get trapped inside. To their bad luck, the elevator's cables break and it plummets to the ground, injuring both Jin and Bai. At the hospital, Bai opens her eyes and finds her body all wrapped in bandages. When she looks around, she notices Jin beside her bed and screams, begging God to help her. Again, her prayer is heard, and time loops back to the early morning of May 20th. This time, Bai realizes that she will be stuck in this time loop until she successfully resigns. To make Jin accept her resignation, she avoids repeating her actions and instead walks to his apartment, avoids the elevator, and wears flat shoes. Later, when she arrives at the office, she is approached by one of her colleagues, Jia, who appears to have a crush on her. Jia invites Bai for dinner, and to his surprise, she accepts his invitation. In the following scene, Bai drives Jin home and on the way, thinks about ways to make him accept her resignation letter. Suddenly, she gets an idea to use Jin and her zodiac signs as a way out. Bai tells her boss that she's thinking about leaving her job in order to save his life because their stars are not aligning properly. In response, Jin reveals that she made a mistake on his date of birth, and he has already checked into their stars' alignment. Turns out, they're a perfect match. Annoyed, Bai has no reply and simply remains silent. At night, she goes on the dinner date with Jia, and the two have a great time. Bai posts some pictures on her social media account, and Jin notices it. Despite being rude to her all the time, he gets jealous and calls her immediately. When Bai picks up, he mentions that they need to discuss something important. Our girl also replies the same, but before she can talk about her resignation, the clock strikes midnight and she again travels back to May 20th. Later at the office, as Bai is contemplating her failed strategies, her mother video calls her and, like every other mother, begins nagging her about getting old. She compares Bai with other girls her age and urges her to take things more seriously. Our heroine tries her best to explain that she's at work, but her mother prattles on. Right then, Jin arrives and stands right in front of the monitor. He tells Bai to attend to her personal matters during her own leisure time. He then comes very close to her, and from Bai's mother's point of view, it looks as if they're kissing. The woman is pleased and begins to tease her daughter about her secret relationship with her boss. Bai denies it, but her mother refuses to believe her words. A little while later, Bai goes to get some water, and Jia approaches her and asks her for another dinner date. She smiles and agrees. Unfortunately, Jin overhears their conversation and calls Bai, informing her that she will have to work late to help him with a particular project. Our poor girl has no choice but to agree. Later that night, after their work is completed, Jin and Bai sit for dinner, and the latter freely pours the wine for her boss. Now that Jin is intoxicated, Bai tries to use the opportunity to make him sign her resignation letter. To her surprise, instead of signing it, he begs Bai to never leave him, saying that she is the only one who understands him. At this moment, she finds him adorable and begins taking pictures of him. After a while, a drunk Jin gets randy and suddenly kisses Bai on the cheek. Because of this, the latter realizes that she made a mistake by making him drink wine. Afterward, Bai returns home and thinks about Jin. Right then, the clock strikes midnight and time loops back to the early morning of May 20th. This time, she decides to perform poorly at work, forcing him to accept her resignation. Next, at the office, instead of serving Jim his preferred coffee, she serves him the one he hates. However, to her surprise, he drinks the coffee and says it's the best one he's had. After this plan fails, Bai thinks of other ways to irritate Jin. She is supposed to take him to an important client meeting and decides to make him late. She takes a different route and dilly-dallies, despite the meeting time quickly approaching. Jin notices and angrily tells her to change the route. Playing dumb, Bai apologizes and returns to the main road. However, to their surprise, as they listen to the news, they learn that there's been a major accident on the main road, causing a huge traffic jam. Hearing this, Jin credits Bai for her cleverness and thanks her for saving his life. To top it off, when they arrive at the meeting, an office employee reveals that their client turned out to be a fraud. But because Jin arrived late to the meeting, their company was spared from a potentially huge loss. In the following scene, as the two arrive at the office, Jin arranges for a huge party to honor Bai. At the same time, before Jo could ask Bai for dinner, Jin approaches her and mentions that as a reward, she will get a chance to have dinner with the CEO. Afterward, he takes Bai to his house and makes her prepare the food. Together, they enjoy the dinner and have a great time. But when it's time to clean up, Bai is asked to do the dishes alone. This enrages her so much that she decides to take revenge. However, before she can do so, it's 12 o'clock, and the time loops back to the morning of May 20th. Realizing that she can't resign no matter what she does, Bai decides to take the day off. She messages Jin claiming to have the stomach flu and requests to leave. The latter allows it, so she orders a bunch of food to celebrate. Surprisingly, at the office, Jin starts missing Bai and decides to visit her house on the pretext of getting some documents. Shortly after, when he arrives outside her apartment and rings the bell, Bai panics and rushes to hide all the junk food she ordered. When she takes too long to open the door, Jin assumes that she's getting ready to welcome him inside. However, to his dismay, Bai pretends to be sick while opening the door, prompting him to carry her to bed. He tells her to rest and begins preparing a soup-like dish for her. Not willing to give up on her tasty food, Bai comes up with a plan. Later, when Jin enters the bathroom, she locks it from outside and informs him that the door is jammed and can't be opened from the other side. Using this opportunity, she begins consuming all of her junk food, but forgets about the dishes. A while later, when she opens the door to the bathroom, Jin notices the dishes and catches her lie. In a fit of rage, he cancels her leave and takes her to the office. The scene then shifts to the office where Jo approaches Bai and again asks her for a dinner date. The latter promptly accepts, but unbeknownst to them, Jin is observing this from a distance. Out of jealousy, he then approaches the duo and informs them that no romantic interactions are allowed in the office, adding that if any employee is caught doing so, they will be fired immediately. Hearing this, Bai becomes happy and mentions that she wants the same. Later in the evening, she invites Jo to have dinner at the office, violating Jin's previous warning. She even feeds the dishes to Jo and pretends to like him. Jin is looking at all this and feels annoyed. Having no other choice, he intervenes in their dinner and sends Jo to bring him a coffee. Once the two are alone, Bai reminds him of the rules she violated and suggests he fire her from the job. Sadly, and to her dismay, Jin tells her that the rule doesn't apply to her. He then orders her to drop him home, and reluctantly, Bai gets in his car. On their way, they notice Miss Fang, another employee of the company, totally drunk and stumbling down the road. Bai assists her and puts her in the car. Here, Fang reveals that she likes Jin and wants to be in a relationship with him. However, the boss says that he only thinks of her as a colleague and has no interest in getting into a relationship. Soon, they drop Fang at her apartment and reach Jin's house. A lady welcomes both of them and praises Bai for her beauty and dedication to work. After this, Bai returns to the car and the clock strikes 12, resetting the day to May 20th once again. Today, Bai decides to meet Jin's mother and behave badly so that the woman will order Jin to fire her from the job. After work, Bai arrives at Jin's house and goes inside. Unfortunately, she meets with the lady from the previous day and learns that Jin doesn't have a mother. Turns out she passed away in an accident when he was young. This devastates Bai, as once again her plan has failed. She then drowns her sorrows in drink. Drunk, she gets real close to Jin and he assumes she's about to kiss him. However, Bai slaps him hard and asks why he won't leave her alone and resigns from the job. She also mentions that she hates him and has no interest in continuing to work for him. Listening to this, Jin is surprised and feels pity for her. He then drives her home and before walking away, hands her the termination letter she asked for. Unfortunately, when Bai walks inside the elevator to reach her apartment, it malfunctions, prompting her to yell for help. Jin hears her pleas and immediately arrives to help. He somehow manages to pull her out of the elevator, but he himself gets stuck inside. To make matters worse, something snaps, and the elevator goes crashing to the ground floor. Jin is badly injured and hospitalized. Seeing him in such critical condition, Bai blames herself. She also assumes that time won't loop again, as now her resignation has been accepted. She then returns home sad and falls asleep. Surprisingly, when Bai wakes up, the day has once again looped back to May 20th. On the other hand, Jin wakes up healthy, but has some flashbacks about the elevator incident and Bai asking for her resignation. Later at the office, Jin starts believing that he has the ability to see into the future. So, he avoids taking Bai to his house, fearing that she might resign. However, our girl doesn't listen to him and follows him to his house with the intent to take care of him. At Jin's home while working together, the two get really close to one another and nearly kiss. Unfortunately, at the same time, Jin remembers their past incident and backs off. The following morning, he wakes up in a déjà vu and starts to realize that he's stuck in a time loop. Searching for answers, he pays Bai a visit and starts looking around her house. To his dismay, he finds his photograph kept inside her punching bag. Shortly after, when both of them stop each other from getting into the elevator, they realize that they're stuck in the time loop together. So, they begin searching for ways to get out of it. Later, Jin notices a couple kissing on the television and hypothesizes that a kiss may break the time loop. Bai agrees to it and they finally kiss, but nothing happens. Not willing to give up, Jin mentions that they should try it again at midnight. Soon, Bai remembers hearing a strange sound every time Jin calls her and assumes that someone wants to kill him. In response, our hero is taken aback as he believes he's a well-respected man. Together they go to the office and begin looking for anyone who might have a grudge against the CEO. Later, when Jin goes to the bathroom, he receives an unknown call. Upon answering it, he learns that his secretary has been kidnapped. The kidnapper tells him to come to the parking lot if he wants her safe. Jin hurries there, only to see Bai tied to a chair and the kidnapper waiting for him. Surprisingly, the kidnapper turns out to be the office security guard who tampers with the elevators every time they get in. Right then, the clock strikes midnight and the time shifts. The next day, before the elevator crashes again, Bai and Jin capture the guard and take him into custody. On questioning him, they learn that the guard is working for a rival group, trying to take revenge on Jin. The duo hand him over to the police, believing that they have finally stopped the time loop. However, to their dismay, the following morning, they once again wake up on May 20th. Realizing that they're stuck for good, both of them decide to make the best of their time by trying different things. Jin visits his rival group and reconciles with them, prompting them to abort their mission of killing him. Next, he goes to Bai's house and meets her parents. Bai also visits Jin's bedroom and finds a picture depicting her. She asks Jin about it, and here, he confesses his feelings for her. He then approaches her and kisses her on the lips. At this moment, Bai also says that she likes him, and the two hug. The following day, they arrive at the office together and behave like a couple. The staff are surprised to see them together, but Jin and Bai assume that time will loop again, so they continue their romantic antics inside the office. Right then, Bai receives a message from the mysterious company about the job proposal, and the date is set for the next day. Seeing this, they realize that the love confession might have ended their time loop. After realizing this, Bai is embarrassed to face her colleagues and decides to follow through with her resignation. The show then ends with Jin kissing her and assuring her that he is ready to reveal their relationship in front of everyone.